Last Gamble is a World Ends With You fan game I announced in 2023, put on hiatus in 2024 in favor of my main project, quietly cancelled about a month ago, and then uncancelled a few weeks ago. This script was originally much longer and much more rambly. I've shortened it down a lot, but because of that, I won't go into as much detail as to the things like my reasons for canceling the project in the first place and why I brought it back. What I will say is that I played the game before I decided to uncancel it, and saw a lot I liked, but also a lot that would need to be changed if I wanted this to be something that other people would actually enjoy. So let's talk about that.
One, two, three, tell me who.
The biggest change I want for this game by far is to avoid using RPG Maker's RTP graphics. RTP, for those not in the know, stands for Runtime Product, and basically it just refers to the stock assets that come with RPG Maker. Originally, I didn't care about using them. I got only one request asking that I replace them. At the time, I said no, because it would have cost money. Now though, I'm more willing to invest my time into learning a skill like art to make the game look more akin to the TWEWY DS games, so it can fit in its art style of the series. I'm sure someone's gonna cringe at the idea of a guy using his fan game as an experiment to learn a new skill like that, but newsflash, it's too late! Last Gamble has been a guinea pig from the start, and I'm not stopping now. That being said, I can't do it all myself. If you paid attention to the background footage, you probably noticed that unlike the games that came before it, Last Gamble does not have unique art for all the threads and pins and such. This is something I want to change, but since this borders on high-res art territory and not lower-res pixel art, it'd be difficult, even if I did spend as much time learning art as I did music. Speaking of which... Last Gamble uses a lot of music from across both the original, Neo, and Final Remix, but I also used music from other games like Metal Gear Rising and Persona 2, and I largely regret that. MGR's music does not fit in with the music of TWEWY, even with the lyrics, and while the music of Persona 2 was chosen specifically because it feels more game-y, I feel like with the current skill set I have, I could easily just make my own music, and so there's no point in using it. So simply put, I do plan on trying to give Last Gamble some original tracks, not an entirely original soundtrack, but enough to make it stand out. I made a mistake early on in Last Gamble where I tried to adhere to the location the setting is based on as close as possible. In this case, that's Duluth, Minnesota, also known as the only cool city in this bougie Canada-ass state. Problem is, this is America, and while I didn't realize it, trying to copy the repetition of Starbucks and McDonald's, while not unrealistic, does not make for an interesting experience in a video game. So I'll probably remove some of these locations and fill them in with more restaurants that cover more types of food, along with taking inspiration from the many small businesses I've interacted throughout my life. My lack of enjoyment with brands doesn't stop with food though. For the most part, the threads, save for maybe 2 brands, are not unique and just feel generic. I'm not a fashionista, so this sort of thing doesn't come naturally to me, but I easily could have put in more effort into basing the clothing brands off of American fashion trends, rather than basing them off of the clothing stores my mother would drag me to when I was like 12. Okay, so this is a bit misleading. I don't hate the story I've written. In fact, I like it. But more so, the problem is the character arcs and dialogue between the first 2 characters you control and meet. They're pretty plain and boring, quite frankly. They don't really have any arc to speak of, and while I don't consider either of them to be this game's equivalent to Neku or Rindo, that's not an excuse to make them plain and boring characters. So I'd probably put in some effort to make the first week focus on them and maybe lean into, the week structure of the first game, where each week had its own contained arc that makes each one satisfying on its own right. I'm sure someone has been listening to this video and has thought that some of the decisions I've made in the past have been odd, like making the setting based on Duluth and not one of the many famous boring cities like New York. And the reason that this game is largely based on my own experiences, as I feel this is necessary to make a game as personal as the world is with you. This has had some drawbacks though. I ended up exploring topics that were heavily tied to some emotional baggage I previously had, but I feel like now that I've grown past that, it gives me an opportunity to, as a writer, to use that as an entertaining point in the story. My goal from this start has been to make the games I want to exist a reality, but for a fan game like this, I can't just serve myself. I have to make sure an experience that's good as it can be for everyone is made. There are also minor changes I want made. The thing that separates a minor change from a major one is mostly just how much effort and work it would take in the grand scheme of things. An example of this would be the game's maps. Some of them, like Anger Park and Bridge Street, have some odd quirks that would make it either visually uninteresting or very confusing in gameplay, so they need to be redone. I'd also like to improve traversability of maps by making it so you can walk on most roads. I made it so roads couldn't be walked on for some stupid reason, and I honestly don't know why. It makes things so much slower. In most of the areas in TWEWY, let you walk on roads, even when there's visible cars around. There is no good reason for me to do that. Aside from that, there's also some gameplay stuff like noise. Unlike Neo or base TWEWY, noise act like an overworld encounter that you'd see in most RPGs. They see you and it's on site. The issue is that you can't see noise until you scan, so by scanning you can accidentally screw yourself over and get into a fight you couldn't see coming. By making them semi-visible when not scanning, this makes that a non-issue, and that's my plan for implementation. There's also some internal stuff I'd want to change, like having noise spawn randomly when the map is loaded, rather than having a set spawn each time. This wouldn't affect gameplay that much, but it would make developing the game easier for me, as I wouldn't have to manage all these events and how they interact with the invisible noise. So, lastly, what's next for Last Gamble? That I can't answer. Sure, I'm more interested in it now than I was for the last year, but nothing has really changed. Ascension is still my highest priority, and while it is closer to completion, it still looks like an RM game, you know, like Last Gamble. And it can't be beaten because the story isn't fully implemented and the soundtrack isn't complete. What I'm saying is, progress on Last Gamble will be sporadic, and to not expect the game to release too soon. That being said, you won't have to wait forever. I plan on releasing week 1 by itself and then slowly updating the game with the completion of each new week after, and maybe even another day if I decide to do that. I likely won't talk openly about the progress I make because, well, I don't really do that anymore, except for on Patreon where I generally share any progress I've made on all my projects. So, yeah, you're gonna be generally getting silence from me. Speaking of Patreon, this video was brought to you by the members over on Patreon, including the wonderful Makura, who has been supporting me for quite a while now. This video has been available for at least a week now, at least if my plans have gone correctly. And this isn't the first time either. My previous devlog was also available a week early. I was available on the $3 tier. But also, I release updates every week for both Ascension and basically any of my other projects. Currently, I'm working on a 100 Days of Music project. I'm on day like 65 as I'm recording this. And every week, I just update my patrons, or basically just Makura. And yeah, I'm going off script here. So as you can tell by me talking very slowly and saying a lot. So I'll cut this quick. I'll just get to the point. If you want to see more Last Gamble faster, quicker and faster, join my Patreon. The cheapest tier is $1 for the updates and $3 for the videos. You probably don't even need a $3 one. That's just That's just for the early access right now. I also make music sometimes, but not too frequently. I only publish one thing, but that also gets you early access to that. But I also share early access tracks of Ascension as part of my development updates. So, yeah, if you're interested, you can support me there. If you're not, don't feel pressured to. You'll know when Last Gamble comes out when you see another video here. Anyways, I don't know how to end videos, so goodbye.